You're listening to the ESO Network, your station for all things geek.
Hello, welcome to episode 210 of the Soulforge podcast.
Welcome to the Soulforge, a place of silent mystery, quiet contemplation, and outright mayhem. Join your host, Sean Vanderloo, as he guides you through the adventures of living. Together, we'll talk about life and love, sex and dating, joy and heartache, memories and loss, and so much more. Don't worry, it's not nearly as pretentious as it sounds. Get ready for life, the universe, and everything on the Soulforge.
Hey gang, welcome back to the show. It's Sean, as always, and have I got a treat for you? Probably not. But guess what? This week is kind of a mad rush, and I'm going to give you a quick, brief rundown, letting you know that earlier in the week we had a torrential rainstorm here in Timmins, the likes of which we have not seen in a long time, and hence the basement flooded, and we've been pulling out all kinds of flooring and baseboards and all kinds of things, moving furniture around, and besides the stuff that got wrecked, well, we won't talk about that. So anyway, I don't have time to record a full podcast. I'm giving you a rare repeat episode, which I don't think has ever happened before. So what's going to happen today is I am going to re-release episode 12. This is from before the Soulforge podcast joined the ESO network. So any of you out there in podcast land that have been listening to the Soulforge since I joined ESO, well, you probably haven't heard this before. It's the birthday episode. I talked about I listened to it the other day just to make sure it was okay, and it is. It's pretty great, actually, for being only 12 episodes in. What's going to happen is I'm going to finish talking. I'm going to play a couple promos from the ESO network, and then I'm going to go into the main show. You're going to enjoy the heck out of it, and it's going to be the same and remember as before. And the end credits that I did 3.5 years ago were fantastic. I don't know why I switched out of those, so let me know what you think. So anyway, the only thing I wanted to bring up that's new, by the way, I'm sitting outside because there are a bunch of industrial fans in the basement cleaning up and drying the water, so I'm outside. So maybe you're hearing bird noises and stuff. Anyway, it's ambiance. So what I'm going to tell you right now is go watch The Tomorrow War on Amazon Prime. I wanted to do a whole big in-depth review on it, but I don't have time for that right now. So anyway, fantastic movie, one of the best movies I've seen in a long, long time. There's more I want to talk about. I want to tell you about the store update and all that kind of stuff, but maybe I'll do that more next week. I need to go finish cleaning up and rearranging things. I just got to go quickly edit this podcast so you can listen to it tomorrow. So anyway, hope you enjoy episode 12, the birthday edition. There's a poem in there and all kinds of stuff, and I was listening back to it. It doesn't even sound like me anymore. But let me know what you think. soulforgepodcast@gmail.com. And until then, I'll probably be back next week unless I'm super busy installing flooring or another disaster happens. So anyway, stay tuned for these messages from the ESO network, and then enjoy this retro podcast, Soulforge style.
Here at the Cosmic Pizza Podcast, we make every show from the finest ingredients.
Juicy interviews, fiery film nights, delicious Desert Island DVDs.
And pack it all into a slice of life in every episode.
Order up our specials now from your delivery guys.
Sean from Canada.
Dan from Kent in the UK.
And Paul from near Liverpool in the UK.
Here on the ESO network.
The Cosmic Pizza Podcast.
Serving you a slice of life.
Welcome to Dr. Geek's Laboratory.
Hello everyone, Dr. Geek here with a shout out to all the scientists who worked tirelessly to bring a COVID-19 vaccine into reality. Let's face it, creating something of this magnitude is a miracle worthy of Dr. McCoy himself. And now, Dr. Geek needs you to do your part. Remember, each shot is one small step back to normal, one giant leap to putting the pandemic behind us. We can do this. For more information, visit vaccines.gov to find your nearest provider.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode 12 of the Soul Forge podcast. Once again, I'm your host Sean, and today we're going to talk about birthdays. Why are we going to talk about birthdays? Well, I just had mine the other day, and I turned the big 4-1. One more year until I get 42. The answer to everything. That's Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy reference in case you didn't know. But what about birthdays specifically, and why are we going to talk about them? Well, the last episode was all about loss, and it was a pretty heavy episode, and I wanted to turn it around and talk about something fun. Birthdays are fun. Let's talk about those. Yay! Birthdays have always had a lot of significance to my own life because they're like markers, anniversaries, that kind of thing. I've always been good at remembering specific instances when things happened. Not necessarily the details about things. Like people will say, hey, remember when we did this or did that and the other thing? And I don't. But if you ask me about a date, I can definitely tell you something about that. So let me think about some significant birthday dates that I have had. I remember when I had turned 25. That was the quarter life or quarter century mark. And I was feeling... well, like I needed to progress somewhere in my life and needed some really good progress. So what did I do? I was working at Mike's Mart. Back then, minimum wage was $6.85, and I was going to be 25, and I couldn't be making minimum wage at that age. That was just unacceptable. So I said to my boss at the time, I said, what was her name? Christina. I said, Christina, listen, in a couple weeks, I'm going to be 25 years old, and I can't be making $6.85 anymore. I can't make the minimum wage. That's unacceptable to me. I said, I don't even care if you just give me a penny raise. It doesn't matter what you do, just something so that I'm not making minimum wage. And lo and behold, she did. She gave me a raise up to $7, even though I'd only been there since I think May or something. So May to September. I hadn't even been there 6 months, but I was a good worker, and she gave me a 15-cent raise, and I wasn't making minimum wage anymore, and I was happy. Now, listeners to the podcast, longtime listeners, may have heard that back in the day I used to write poetry, and I actually was looking through it the other day, and I came across a poem that I wrote the day before my 25th birthday, contemplating the nature of existence and working a minimum wage and whatnot. So I'm going to go ahead and read this poem to you. It was written September 2nd, 2001, and I called it How Convenient. It seems I stand here every day, thinking the same thoughts I thought the day before. The only thing I know for sure is that something has to change. It is one day before my 25th birthday. What have I accomplished with all that time? I'm at work at a convenience store. I make minimum wage. Something definitely has to change. I can feel the stirrings of change. I hope it's not just hope. The situation has gone beyond hoping. The only thing to do is make the alterations I need myself. I know change is only a state of mind. As I stare out of these store windows, I can see that is where my future is. Until that not too distant future. Hi! Will there be anything else today? I guess I must have handled a lot of change because I used that word way too much in that poem. But anyway, just something interesting I came across. And yeah, I was very contemplative at that time. Then what other significant birthdays do I have? Well, of course, when I turned 16 and went for my driver's license and so on. I remember I practiced driving all the time, and I was like, oh, can't wait to get my license so I don't have to drive anymore. That's an actual thought that I had. When I turned 19, it was my first year of university, and of course, my birthday is September 3rd, so it's always during Labor Day, and we were all there for Frosh Week, and I remember being at a fire pit in the back of the school where we were all hanging out. Somebody mentioned to somebody else that it was my birthday, and they handed me or threw me a can of Coors Light, and of course, I'm not a big fan of beer, so I put that beer can in my pocket and took it home with me. And I put it in my university memory box, and I still have it. I haven't seen it in a few years. I hope it hasn't exploded, but that's the kind of thing that I did. Everything had significance. Everything had meaning. I'm always keeping everything for history and posterity and all that kind of good stuff. So that's what I do. I keep papers. I keep everything, just because you never know when I might become famous and have to have a museum built in my honor at the place that I grew up in. And of course, they're going to want to have all my personal effects and all that good stuff. Anyway, I was in university for an English major, and you hear a lot about all the old famous authors who have museums in their offices and stuff. And I always thought, well, that would be pretty cool to have, and maybe that's partly why I started writing the poetry. I don't really know. Other birthdays that I had, when I turned 30, I was dreading that for about 6 months before it, and I couldn't stand where I was working. I was working at a call center, and I'd been there since the fall of 2001. So summer of 2006, just before my 30th birthday, was horrendous. You can ask Trish. I was insufferable.
Damn it, Jim, what the hell's the matter with you? Other people have birthdays. Why are we treating yours like a funeral?
Bones, I don't want to be lectured.
What the hell do you want?
It took everything in me just to go to work every day, because I'd been at the call center for nearly 5 years. It was soul-sucking. So, of course, I was just about to turn 30, and I was starting to look for another job. I applied at the post office, I applied here, I applied there, I applied everywhere. And slightly after my 30th birthday, I got a job as a delivery coordinator at Home Depot, which turned out to be even worse than the call center. But that's not what this is about. What this is about is my 30th birthday party. My mom and my brother came up from out of town. Everybody that I knew pretty much came to my house. And what did Trish do? She threw me a parade, because I don't like going to parades, because it's always cold. It's usually the Christmas parade. I don't mind summer parades, but the Christmas parade is always cold, or it's always raining. And so what did she do for my 30th birthday? She threw one for me. She got her dad's truck and her dad's boat, put me in the back of the boat, drove the truck around, and everybody that came to the party also drove behind the car, or drove behind the truck with the boat. And I was in the boat, and I was throwing candy out into the streets, just like they do in a parade. And that was a lot of fun, actually. What else? What else do I have? Last year I turned 40, and that was a huge deal. My other brother, my brother once again came. Actually, both my brothers. Both brothers came from out of town. My stepdad came from out of town. It was a lot of fun, actually. All kinds of people were there, had a great big barbecue, got all kinds of gifts, got really spoiled, actually. It was super fantastic. And 40, surprisingly, was not a big deal. 30 was horrendous. 25 was atrocious. 40, I was okay. And 41 that just passed a few days ago, not bad either. So it got me thinking, why do we even celebrate birthdays in the first place? Like, what's the significance? It's just an arbitrary date that we happen to be born. We went around the sun, another one revolution. What's the big deal? Well, I found an article, and it says that although research on the exact origin of birthdays and birthday cakes remain inconclusive, there's enough of a consensus to piece together an approximate history. So they start off saying that Egyptians started the party. When pharaohs were crowned in ancient Egypt, they were considered to have transformed into gods, so they had a celebration for that. And scholars pointed to the Bible's reference of a pharaoh's birthday as the earliest known mention of a birthday celebration around 3000 BCE. But it wouldn't have been a birth. It would have been the birth as a god. And then we go on to the Greeks, who added candles to cakes. They offered moon-shaped cakes to Artemis, a form of tribute to the lunar goddess. To recreate the radiance of the moon and her perceived beauty, Greeks lit candles and put them on cakes for a glowing effect. And the Greeks most likely took the idea of a birthday celebration from the Egyptians. And then we've got the Romans, who were the first to celebrate birthdays for the common man, but not women, just men. The prevailing opinion seems to be that the Romans were the first civilization to celebrate birthdays for non-religious figures. Romans would celebrate birthdays for friends and families, while the government created public holidays to observe the birthdays of more famous citizens. Those celebrating a 50th birthday party would actually receive a special cake made of wheat flour, olive oil, honey, and grated cheese. Doesn't sound very good. And it tells us here in the article that female birthdays weren't celebrated until around the 12th century. So that's a long time. Christians initially considered birthdays to be a pagan ritual because of the belief that people or humans are born with original sin, and birthdays were tied to pagan gods. The Christian church considered birthday celebrations evil. But then something changed, and around the 4th century, Christians changed their mind, began to celebrate the birthday of Jesus as the holiday of Christmas, and the new celebration was accepted partly to recruit those already celebrating the Roman holiday of Saturnalia. Turns out, the birthday cake as we know it today was actually invented by German bakers. In the late 18th century, Germany created the closest prerequisite to the contemporary birthday party. The celebration was held for German children, or Kinder, and involved birthday cakes and candles, and kids got one candle for each year they'd been alive, plus another to symbolize the hope of living for at least one more year. Also, blowing out candles and making a wish was part of these early celebrations. So that's almost exactly what we have today. Thanks to the Industrial Revolution, we all got delicious cakes. Because for quite a while, birthday celebrations involving sugary cakes were only available to the very wealthy. The necessary ingredients were considered a luxury, but with the Industrial Revolution, not only did the required ingredients become more abundant, but bakeries also started offering pre-made cakes at lower prices due to these advances in the mass production, which the Industrial Revolution is, of course, known for. And then we have the birthday song, which turns out it was kind of a remix. So I'll just read it as it says here. In 1893, Patty and Mildred Hill wrote a song they called Good Morning to All, which was intended to be sung by students before classes began. The song eventually caught on across America, giving rise to a number of variations. Robert Coleman eventually published a songbook in 1924, adding a few extra lyrics that would quickly come to overshadow the original lines. The new rendition became the version we all know now as Happy Birthday to You. So there you go. That's a little bit of birthday news. What do you guys have to say about your birthday? Do you celebrate it? Is it a big deal? Do you care? I know some people really go out on their birthday, go all out. They celebrate for days and days before and days afterwards. And other people I know, they don't even acknowledge it, or they barely acknowledge it. Like my buddy Johan, his birthday comes along and he doesn't have a party, doesn't want a cake, doesn't want any gifts. I wished him a happy birthday this year, and 6 hours later he said thanks, because I think I texted him because he was at work, but he doesn't care. And then there's me who loves a good birthday party. In fact, this coming weekend I'm having a bunch of people over, and we're gonna have a barbecue and a fire in the backyard. And am I gonna have gifts? Don't care, doesn't matter. In fact, in the Facebook invitation that I wrote, I said presents are not required, but your presence are. Or your presence is. Anyway, come. I don't need stuff. I just want you to come. So I'm going to see how many people come, and we'll have drinks, and we'll have food, and hot dogs, hamburgers, and a nice fire. It's not supposed to rain, so it's even better. That's what I like on my birthday, or for my birthday celebration. Just friends and family, and hang out, and talk, and drink, and just be, That's what's important.
Oh, by the way, thank you for this.
I know of your fondness for antiques.
It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. Message, Spock?
None that I'm conscious of. Except, of course, happy birthday. Surely the best of times.
So what do you folks do? Do you care? Do you celebrate? Do you have any special or interesting or embarrassing birthday stories that you'd like to relate? I'd like to hear them. You can email me, soulforgepodcast@gmail.com. You can send in a written email. You can send an MP3 recording that I can play on the show. I just want to hear from you. I don't care how. Maybe tweet me at SoulForgePod. That would be awesome. Or if you haven't, join the Facebook group. That would also be terrific. Facebook.com/SoulForgePodcast. I just want to hear from you. And that's about it. That's all I've got to say about birthdays. Just a quick little discussion, I guess. Just to tell you that, hey, it was my birthday. I've been thinking about birthdays. I'm doing okay. Everything's fine. I do want to thank a good friend of the show, Dan, for sending me a tweet the other day saying that he appreciated what it took to record the Loss episode. And yeah, it took a lot out of me. And yeah, it was hard to do, but it needed to be done because I'm here to lay my soul on the line and give you guys a different perspective and hopefully help you out. And if it helps you out, I'm grateful for that. That's fantastic. So once again, thanks for tuning in to Soul Forge Podcast. If you haven't, leave a 5-star review in the iTunes store and tell all your friends about us. And remember, life is like a book. Some chapters are sad, some are happy, and some are exciting. But if you never turn the page, you'll never know what the next chapter has in store for you. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Soul Forge. I hope you found some value in it. To contact the show, please email soulforgepodcast@gmail.com or find us on Twitter at SoulForgePod. We are Soulforge Podcast on Facebook, and you can find me personally on Twitter and Instagram at Darth Vaderloo. Please spread the Soulforge word by rating and reviewing us in iTunes and by telling everyone you know. Thanks for stopping by the Forge.
This has been a broadcast of the ESO Network. Be part of the crew and help support our shows by donating to our ESO Patreon or by shopping at the TeePublic store, which can all be found at www.esonetwork.com. The ESO Network, your station for all things geek.